arrived, take the test real quick because we're about to take it down. All right, we are working on pizza. We're not quite sure what happened to the pizza, but we are getting started for everybody. Thanks. Awesome. So we're going to start with Open Pitch Pizza. I wasn't here for the last one last week, but I listened to it. I was listening online. And first of all, thank you to everybody that was brave enough to get up and be some of the first people to pitch. It takes a lot of courage to get up here in front of everybody and do that. But one thing that I want to add this week is we're going to give more feedback to you on the pitches as you give them. Sometimes we might get up and we might give the pitch and do our version of them too. So hopefully we'll see what happens, but we'll see a couple more. And I'd really, like I said, encourage you all to try to think of at least one time during the semester getting up and pitching some idea, something that you're thinking about or you're working on, and it's definitely okay to pitch more than once. So Matt, do you have the list of people that are going to pitch? And do you want to? Is there another mic? Do you want to grab the other mic so you can hand it off between them? All right, we've got, and then the schedule's a little flexible. Actually, I'm glad I forgot about this slide. So how was Chris and Mitesh last week? That was pretty awesome, huh? Chris is like the CEO of Indeed. It's like a really big deal, like really, like, I mean, it was pretty awesome that he came here to spend that time with us. And Mitesh is an amazing entrepreneur and CTO as well. But Chris is awesome. They both are so thoughtful. You can see in how they approach everything that they're doing. And I was listening to the whole thing. I thought it was great. It was really good.
They said you were the backbone of like the current Austin startup.
They knew I was listening. They were just trying to make me feel good. Don't worry about that. That was, yeah. This Austin would have happened anyway. But what was anything surprising to you from that conversation, from hearing from them?
It all started from that initial conversation here that you used to
From Trilogy, yeah. Trilogy is like, they call it the Trilogy Mafia. And it's all these people that moved to Austin, particularly from about 1995 to 1999. I came at the very end to work at Trilogy, and it brought a lot of people here, and a lot of those people stayed. A lot of them still are here in Austin, and when you see a really big company breaking out and growing, there's often a whole bunch of Trilogy people that are part of it. What else surprised you? Anything? Nothing surprising. Is that what you expected? Oh, there you go.
Most was really down to earth and humble, as if it didn't have anything to prove, and it just gave me some more insight into maybe true entrepreneurship is not about like trying to be flashy, but it's just about being really excited about something and good at something and having enough experience in it, and then getting something from it.
Yeah, Chris. Yeah, definitely, for sure. Was there another one?
The fact that Chris was talking about his kind of workflow and the way he manages his time, and the fact that he really doesn't do like any work on weekends, which I was just kind of like, well, you don't like hear that a lot now. It sounds like
I wish I could say that, but yes, he's pretty impressive that he's got that he's both got his stuff under control that much, and that he can do it, and that just has the discipline to do that. Because like you said, there's like always more stuff to do, right? You're running one of the biggest companies in the world. Like there's probably always something he could. Well, tonight I could work on that. Like it's kind of like being the president, right? Like how do they ever stop, right?
I was surprised that it's like your journey. Like Chris was talking about how he was like in California doing music, and then ended up at Rice, and then like got an architecture major, and I was like, wow, that's like a long journey. And then also I was surprised that he like went from an entrepreneur role to CEO, because I feel like they're both like very prestigious, but just different. Like he went from like running his own show to like still running the show, but like under more parameters.
Yeah, and I bet, I mean, he's not a defeatist kind of person. Like, I'm sure he's kind of obviously kind of an optimist. But like when that company failed, he probably wasn't that feeling that good about himself and thinking like, wow, what is the next thing I'm going to do? Is it going to be some awesome thing? And it was like, oh, I'm actually going to become the CEO of Indeed. Pretty awesome. Well, we have Colin here tonight. We'll get to talk about him some more in just a minute. We have Jacqueline coming the week after. Jacqueline's awesome. Jacqueline I first met when she was working at a startup upstairs when we only had one floor, and she's now running a really great company, and really excited to have her join us as well. I'm still working on 2 spots there that we'll fill in, and then Bob and Jason and Diane haven't changed. So we're going to jump in, and we'll get into the pitches first, and then Colin and I are going to get to talk. So, Matt, do you want to call up the pitches one at a time?
You want them to like line up and stuff?
That'd probably even be easier, yeah, so go faster, have them line up on the side.
Y'all hear me? Okay, cool. So we got, and please, like my pronunciation, if it's wrong, just correct it, please. Thank you. Manav, Veer, Ragav, Philip, and Ferris.
Everyone can line up near the
just line
gel
up right
blasters. And then just right up here, line up near the gel blasters. And then you're going to come stand up in the middle when you do your pitch, and he'll give you the mic.
Hey, how's everyone going?
Good.
That's good. I'm doing the investor pitch here. So here's the story, Ray. I'm going to keep it simple. A lot of CRMs that are built are overly complicated, and normal employees don't understand how to get the data and analyze it, right? Salesforce, too complicated. Too many buttons. It pertains to too many industries. I've actually spoken to many small business owners, and they want a solution tailored to them. So here's what I propose. I propose a modular customer relationship management software built on LLMs so that normal employees can just query the software and get data, and they can ask it questions about the data. And it's built up on the foundation of conversational computation. It's not click, 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 have expensive trainings that are complicated. No, this is just plug and play, modular. The staff on our end is going to be able to customize it to any industry very quickly, and it's going to be tailored for small businesses and like small blue collar, nothing fancy. Like we're not aiming for Facebook. We're aiming for the debt collectors. We're aiming for the construction company. We're aiming for the HVAC company. So this industry is very behind technologically, and by sending this technology in, we can really scale up their operations. We can scale up their software too. Thank you.
Awesome. All right, remember we clap with one big clap. I'll try again. One big clap. Boom. Yeah, all right. So otherwise Stormy gets too upset. See, she's like, what is going on? All right, so I'm going to give you some quick feedback on that one. First of all, that was a great pitch. Good job getting up there, and you speak really well. You had obviously practiced that before and knew what you were going to say, and were ready for it. And so that was all really good. And then it just started kind of rambling. And so just thinking about what's your it's good to kind of have a, here's my point, I said my point, let me repeat my point, and then close out, right? And then what's your ask at the end? Usually it's some kind of I'm looking for help with something, I'm looking for investors, I'm looking for mentors, I'm looking for a co-founder, whatever you might be asking for. But in particular about your idea, I think that's a great place to be in. Like, the CRMs are huge. It's a huge market, and there's tons of CRMs, and like it's easy to make lots of new like there seem to be new certain CRMs that are successful all the time, and doing one on LLMs sounds really cool. I wouldn't, when you say small businesses, that you kind of lose me there, because like there's still like a million small businesses. I'd get way more specific, and I'd really think about like, what are the 2 or 3 kinds of small businesses, like laundromats or like barbershops or like something that where this would be a really good fit, and be that specific. Like, I'm making a CRM for these kinds of companies, these kinds of small businesses, where the LLMs are going to help them be, even particularly more. That would get me even more excited about it. Cool. You want anything? You don't have to.
I'm just going to be a broken record all day talking about you should be the customer of your own business, and you should know why you're building it, because something didn't exist that you needed and it was broken, so you sought to go fix it. Because whatever you start, you are going to be competing against people who know that industry or that need so intimately well, because they couldn't find the thing they were looking for to solve their problem. And anytime you're going up against someone that's building something from that level of experience or background, they are going to have an edge. So I'm probably just going to give that same answer all day, unless people are their own customer.
All right. Awesome. Great. Thank you. Who's next?
Hey everyone, I'm Raghav Kalyanaraman, and today I'd like to give an investor pitch about a new app that I'm working on at the moment. So how many of you all heard of the Freshman 15? This is the largest known epidemic in college campuses as of right now. You know, we all know that we come to college, we eat too much, in the dining halls especially, and then we realize that, oh no, I gained a lot of weight. Maybe I should have kept track. Maybe if there was a way that I could, use the resources that I have, using the information that I have to make meals, make plans to eat well, to eat healthily. Now that's exactly what this app is going to do, because in addition to working on taking the data from the chefs in the dining hall, taking the data that's available from food experts, from nutritionists around the world, we are going to do one of 2 things. First, we are going to enable users to have an easy graphic user interface to display the food data that's available from the dining halls and plan their meals. But additionally, we're going to be able to enable users to really dive into exactly what they want to do for their health goals. Let's say you want to cut. Let's say you want to maintain your weight, or even bulk. You can do all 3 of those things using this app, and this will enable people to plan. And all college students really want to do is plan. In addition to this, we'll be able to have personalized features that enable students to go around the campus to determine which dining hall is best, where to eat, what exactly to get, and tell you the portion sizes that make the best meal for your health. Now, in addition to all of these things, we can have long-term tracking. There are lots more applications and additions and features that I can talk about, but the bottom line is you'll be able to plan your meals, you'll be able to eat healthily, and you'll be able to find the best meal in the best place here at UT. And the beauty about this app is it doesn't just apply here at UT, it applies to any college campus in the entire country, in the entire world even. And that's why today I'm looking for people who are interested in taking surveys to prove the data that we already know, and of course, coders who are interested in working to develop an app that can really change the way that freshmen and all college students around the world look at the way they eat at dining halls. Thank you.
All right. You want to give them that feedback?
Can you just, maybe I missed it.
Absolutely.
So how does it tie into my college experience? Is it like there's like an API with the dining hall meal plan that shows me what I'm eating, or like?
Correct. So every day, the dining hall actually posts PDFs of all of the food available for that entire week. The only thing that we're doing here first, the basic functionality, is we are taking that data and putting it in an easy-to-use, easy-to-understand format, and so that you're not looking through, pulling up PDFs on your phone and trying to zoom in, find exactly what you're trying to do.
So you just build your meal plan based on the food that's going to be served in your dining hall.
Correct. And it also, because there are so many dining halls here at UT, and other college campuses have even more than just the 3 dining halls at UT, it'll be a lot easier to tell where I should go for the specific type of meal, for the specific type of health goals that I'm trying to meet.
And so the specific text will be around like ingesting that menu data, being able to do text, image to text recognition.
That's correct.
Create a language model, like make it very easy to, like in an automated fashion, have all that information available to be able to quickly make my meal plan.
So long as there's the information provided by the chefs, which we can make sure happens every single week, we will have that ability to show not only the food that's available, but also create diets for each individual person based on their goals.
And then, so based on what's on the menu, how do you know the nutritional facts of those items? You just kind of use like a best guess modeling to know?
So there are two ways that we want to do this. At first, we are going to be using more of what the chefs tell us on how calories are counted, how they go about the nutrition value, because they do also post that information. However, over time, we are planning to use food experts and people who are really interested and very aware of how diets are made, how best to optimize a specific type of meal plan for an individual to best account to their health goals.
Sweet, man. I love it.
I thought you were going to give him feedback about this is a problem you actually have.
I feel like it is a problem.
I know that you just, that was, I thought
I
you,
said, I'll be a broken record until I hear someone.
Okay.
And he did it.
all right, great.
I
Okay,
have
so.
actually so many more questions.
Shh.
I think this is, yeah.
I'd love
All
to
right,
talk
well,
about it after.
So I think you did a great job. Some of the same feedback you'll hear me say, which I would definitely say for you. Clearly, you had practiced that before, and so you knew what you were going to say, and it came out in a logical order, and you're easy to understand. There's a lot of basic stuff that's really important, and you had an ask at the end of like what you wanted to get out of it. So like you kind of like hit all the basic things. It felt to me like it went on for a long time. Like I got kind of like the point after a while, and to be honest, it started to sound like a lot of work. Like it was going to track all this stuff and this stuff and this stuff and tell me what to do for this and with this and this. I'm like, at some point I'm like, I don't want it telling me what to do that much. So it's just like, think about like how you describe it. Like you want to make it sound easy, right? Like, and just really, I would maybe, rather than talking about all the features it could have, just talk about using it. And talk, and that's more like, so right now I walk into the cafeteria and I see this huge list of, I see this huge counter full of all this different stuff, and there's pizza and there's this and there's this, and I don't really know like, which one I should get or, what the impact is of what the choices I'm making. But now with this app, instead I walk in, and before I even get into the cafeteria, it already shows me what's going to be on the menu, and it tells me, hey, look for this, this, and this first, because these are the healthiest things today. They're going to help me get to my goal of bulking up or doing whatever I'm trying to go do, right? And you're kind of describing using it and the benefit like they get from using it without saying it has this feature, it has this feature, it has this feature.
So may I ask a question about that?
This is going to have to be the end,
Talk about
but
it
yes.
later. Yes, that's fine. Okay, so it's just
Make it quick.
Yeah, it's just this is an investor pitch, and I just want to clarify the difference between an investor pitch and a customer pitch, where I'm trying to explain the features and the depth of the app and how it can be taken to scale, more so than just how.
Great point. So,
part of it.
And honestly, this sounded more like a customer pitch to me. The investor side of it, like I'm getting in, like I'm thinking about things like you make a lot of assumptions in this about like people want data, people want this, students want these choices, students want to, and it's like. All of those are assumptions. All of those are things you kind of need to prove. And proving something based on some like data, some actions, some like, something real would get me a lot more excited from an investor perspective. You want anything on that?
I would just say it doesn't matter if it's an investor, an employee, a customer, whoever. If you're giving a 60-second pitch, it's like, why do people care about this product? So I think your 60-second investor pitch and your 60-second customer pitch should basically be identical. Then the investor's gonna be like, oh, that seems like something that a user might like to do. And his point on like, tell me a story. Tell me a story about the way the world is now and how it could be better with this thing that is worth creating, right?
Got it. Appreciate it.
Awesome. Good job.
Thank you.
That's great.
Hello, everyone. I'm going to be kind of asking the same question I did last time, so just bear with me on that one. And this is a pitch to customers for this product. Who here has cheated before on an assignment in school using ChatGPT or some other generative AI model? This is a safe space. You can just raise your hand. Okay, thank you. Now that is a concern. In today's day and age of large language models and generative AI, we know that students increasingly are beginning to cheat on their assignments, especially when it comes to essays and long-form text submissions. That's what we want to stop. At Stylometry, we've developed a model that takes students' old text, profiles it, and then takes the student's new text and outputs the percentage likelihood that that student did or did not write the text. This model is functional, working, and has a high degree of accuracy. GPT-0, which detects AI writing, has a 26% precision rate. We have 76.7% accuracy. So we are very, very close to state of the art. This model works. We have front end, back end, and we are just kind of looking to scale right now. Thank you.
All right, clap. That was pretty good.
I mean, I can't just like use ChatGPT to make a bunch of old writings and add some typos and things like that, and then that way my future ChatGPT writing looks just like my old ChatGPT writing?
So the solution is that on the first day of class, let me tell you, Mike. The solution is that on the first day of class, the professor would have the students write up maybe something on paper or maybe on their computers on the monitor of TAs. So then when they submit that kind of baseline writing, there's a pretty high degree of confidence that it was not written by artificial intelligence.
Okay, that's cool. I like that. Do you think that when the calculator first came out, it was like, all these people are cheating in math using a calculator. We got to put it into it. And like maybe sometime that's what's going to happen with these, natural language models, that like it's really about getting the job done and using whatever tool is available to you. And maybe 10 years from now, like it'll just be a no-brainer to obviously use the available. Because me as a business owner, I'm telling my marketing team, if you're not using ChatGPT, we are losing, right? So there's got to be some, like, I want to see a class of like who can use ChatGPT the best.
Okay.
Yeah, I thought it was you had a great framework at the end, like the ask of like we're looking to scale. Like I wasn't sure what the ask was. Like I'm
Yeah,
like
sure.
like what it's like what do you need? Because you always need something, and every time you get up in front of people and you have this opportunity, like you should be asking for something. So yeah, just like what was the really clear ask? Where were you at? That would be my biggest piece of feedback. Good job.
Thank you very much.
We got one more? Two more. All right.
Hi everyone, my name is Manav. Very nice to meet you all. So I'll preface this by asking a quick question. What's the longest prompt that you've put into ChatGPT before? Like 2 sentences, 3 sentences, anybody longer than that?
Oh yeah, full.
Yeah?
Full writing.
There we go, perfect. So you understand exactly how the best way to put out the best output from ChatGPT is. And so what I'm pitching today to all of you guys as potential customers is a prompt engineering agency, helping people to build prompts that 10x their leverage and output with AI compared to what they're doing right now. And the problem in the market right now is that everybody looks on Twitter and finds 2-sentence prompts that says, apply first principles to solving this problem in my business. The issue is that ChatGPT is 100 times better than just that little measly use case. For example, I increased a company's SEO website traffic by 16x in 2 months using solely ChatGPT written articles. What that means is that your company right now has a very clear opportunity to use ChatGPT to benefit itself in multiple fronts, whether that's marketing, operations, strategy, or any other way that you could find any kind of use case to ask a personalized Google to solve any of your problems for you. And so how the process works, specifically for each customer, is I understand what exactly your issue is with ChatGPT, how you're using it right now, what opportunities for improvement are. Then we go on to building out a database of prompts for you, figuring out where exactly you can improve on what you're doing, and then making that improvement for you. So for example, for marketing departments of companies, I can build prompts that generates ad creative that converts at the same level, if not higher, as what you already have. They can echo a very specific brand sentiment, a very specific tone of voice, a very specific style of writing. For example, I had ChatGPT write a cover letter to Anthropic for a friend of mine, and he got an interview just because of that cover letter, echoing his writing style completely to the T. I'm already in talks with the government of Canada talking about doing business development for them with cold email prompts, helping them figure out what exactly they can do to personalize their types of email messaging, marketing messaging, overall content, and any types of ads to help more companies come to Canada in a way that they see the real benefits of Canada. And so what I ask from all of you guys is if you have any use cases for prompts or want anything in terms of fixing that, I ask you to come find me and ask me. I'm looking for customers and I'm looking to find people who I can help with prompts. Thank you.
Are you looking for any internships? Come work in a place of business and put this skill set to use?
Yeah, well, I can't say no. Always happy to talk more.
Okay, great. I think, I love this. And one of the issues that I have with ChatGPT is kind of an ongoing I want you to learn over time, and I kind of have all my different chats, and I always feel like I'm kind of like starting from the beginning each time I ask it for something. And it's like, really what I want you to do is log into my email for the last 15 years and all my texts for the last 15 years. I want you to know me. I want you to know everyone I'm talking to, because I could care less about my privacy. And I want you to make this more efficient for me. And so learning how to utilize ChatGPT better, I think, is what is going to set companies, especially new companies that are getting started, are going to give them that edge to keep their costs down, create all their content. He's got a great example of leveraging ChatGPT to start a new company that he just did recently. So yeah, I'd love to chat with you. It's
Thank
great.
you so much.
Yeah.
I don't know how scalable it is with like people helping people write prompts. I want it.
Yeah, I mean,
Services business.
I think this is a great. Hey, I'm like, everybody wants to use ChatGPT. A lot of people don't know how to start. Let me help you. Like, you can just shorten the whole thing away a lot and make it a lot simpler. Eventually, you're replaced by ChatGPT 4, 5, right? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
they're
but you learn
they're just
how
going to
to-
make the prompts better. But for now, it's great. So,
And I love starting with the services business.
Yeah.
Cash flow
And you'll
positive
learn-
day one.
and you'll learn problems and learn
Yeah.
things to work with. So,
And you're going to learn the problems of starting a business.
yeah, last one.
Love it.
Thank you guys so much for the feedback.
Yeah. What do you,
Okay, so I'm gonna do an investor pitch for a mobile application I'm working on. So here we go. So raise your hand if you have a roommate, if you've had roommate problems, or if you know someone that has roommate problems. And as you can see, most people in this room have had or known someone who's had negative experiences with roommates. And according to a survey we did at UT Austin, around 73% of roommate problems stemmed from roommates not cleaning up and not doing their chores. This is further supported by a national survey by Rent.com, where over 40% of, roommates, young adult roommates, have had problems with their roommates not doing their chores. And currently there are 19 million college students all over the US, and there's 89 million roommates that are not students or family related that's sharing an apartment in the US. And this number is only projected to grow in the coming years. So I'm working on a super simple mobile application where roommates create a group and they create tasks that's gonna repeat on a frequency. And then it just sends a reminder according to that frequency, and that's it. But on the surface, it's a very simple solution that automatically sends you reminders on when your task is due. But below the surface, we're actually a data company that knows the habits and the habits of each individual roommate and the group itself. With this data, we can make smart product recommendations that opens up the door to both a B2B and a B2C mobile application company. And going into the future, there are so many directions that this app can go to in terms of roommate matching or a gamification of the app and so much more. And right now what we're looking for is funding to hire new developers to further progress the stage of the app. And I sorry practice, but I get a little...
you did great. That's awesome.
Thank you.
Here you go. Clap. All right. Great job. What I really liked about it was the simplicity of it and the focus. Like, here's what we're going to do. We're just going to do this, and we're going to do this part really well. And I like that. And I think that's a great place to start. And I'm a little skeptical about the we're going to make a lot of money off the data part. But I like that initial part of the pitch and the focus.
Yeah, that was great. Yeah, awesome. Great idea.
All right.
You've had this problem before.
Yes, I started working on this because I've had problems. And yeah, I don't want to make it too long, but.
No, this seems great.
And we found also people were willing to pay because I did like a manual service that was like super non-scalable and like almost stupid. But people like my friends or like people were willing to pay, and they did pay like $5 for the service. So.
Okay, that's a start.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you.
Great job. All right, well, we're going to now switch to our fireside chat, but as part of our special surprise of Colin being here today and him also coincidentally being the CEO of Gel Blaster and bringing a bunch of Gel Blasters, someone that pitches gets a $100 prize, because that's always what we do. But everybody that pitches, if you'd like, can grab a gel blaster. Everyone that pitched today, and you can take a gel blaster home. So for all I think 5 of you, thank you, Colin. And we will transition up to the front, Colin.
So I'll just start by saying one of probably Josh's favorite thing about me is my brevity and how short and sweet I like to keep things, because that's something he's super into. So you guys will probably notice that throughout this conversation. He'll probably not tell me ever to stop talking and wrap it up.
Well, yeah. So, well, self-declared, but no, I don't think so. I think he'll do, I'm sure, a great job.
Hearing him give you guys all
delivering
that
it.
feedback, every time I'm in a room and we go through a meeting, he's like, yeah, just say it faster. Just wrap it up. Wrap it up. We get it. I'm like, every time I'm in front of Josh, I'm like, okay, just use less words.
Well, now you got to now we get to have you in the hot seat here, so in front of all the students. So thank you, Colin, for joining us. Colin Gwynn is the CEO of Gel Blaster. Who has heard of Gel Blaster before today? Before we told you to watch the video?
Oh my God, this is great news.
Okay.
It's so good for our market penetration.
Yeah, it's a breakout toy. It's one of the best-selling toys of the year, and it's kind of like, one easy way to think about it is like the next Nerf gun, but it doesn't. You don't have to pick up all the Nerf bullets, and there's probably a lot of other benefits too. But that's like a really good starting point. Is you don't have to pick up all the bullets, and so Gel Blaster's the toy. And Colin's done a lot of different things. I told you some of it in his background as you prepared for this. He's been an entrepreneur. He's done a lot of work with drones and robotics. He helped DJI, the biggest drone company in the world, to expand into the U.S. and grow their presence here. And then has since then worked with lots of other drone companies. And then yet somehow, like probably, in many ways, not what he expected to happen. One of the most successful things that he happens to be working on right now is Gel Blaster, which is a toy that he originally built for his own son, for his kids to play with. And so Gel Blaster is itself a huge success and a really great story and lots to learn from. But Colin himself has a great story behind it all too. And he does it all with a lot of purpose as well. The assignment for today for you to watch was the wrap up of the first episode of him and his wife Christy being on The Amazing Race, and he then they were so amazing that they were called back for the alumni, bring back the best of people to go do it again, and got to do it a second time. So they got to do it twice in 2 different seasons. And then he's used that as a great platform to help reach other entrepreneurs, both of them have, and other people, and help them think about their lives and some of the challenges, in their everyone's own amazing race. So thank you, Colin, for joining us, and Christy and your guests for coming here tonight. And we're really excited to learn more from your story.
Fantastic. Yeah, thank you so much for having me, Josh. Honored to be here. I think it's so cool what you're doing. I'm just, as I'm sitting here watching and looking at your schedule of speakers and having them pitch and the feedback, I mean, wow. I would imagine this class books up very quickly.
Yeah, well, it's we teach. I mean, it kind of blows my mind. I've been teaching it more than a dozen years, and we've had more than 1,000 students come through here.
Wow.
And for me, it's my way of getting to, meet students every year and get them to come to Capital Factory and get to find companies to invest in and people to work with, and
it's awesome.
Lots of things like that too.
Yeah, what an incredible opportunity. Really, really cool that you're doing this.
So Colin, let's start with, they watched the video about The Amazing Race. Tell us how you got on The Amazing Race. This was pretty early in the world of like reality TV.
It was early in the world of reality TV. Back then, actually still now, there's a lot of recruiting that's done for reality TV where people go around to different campuses or they'll go recruit from different places. And actually Christy was Miss Teen USA when she was 18, 19 years old. And so once you're on one of those lists, then it's very common to be getting recruited for different reality shows. And she would get recruited for Bachelorette and Bachelor and Island this and that, and you know, obviously like we really had no interest of doing reality TV back then. Chrissy was on a TV series that filmed in Lithuania for a couple of years, and you know, was doing a lot of like normal acting, and you know, 20 years ago doing reality TV was kind of the kiss of death for an actor. And so always never really entertained the ideas, but they called. She came home one day and was like, yeah, I got a call about some show called Amazing Race. You like travel around and do stuff, you know, whatever. And so I like Google it, and it had been on for a couple years. I was like, we got to do this. This is like traveling around the world, doing all these amazing challenges. Seems like the best show ever. So then we sent in a tape, and then you go through a whole process and narrow down, and ultimately they picked us to do it.
So short story is she got invited.
100%. I just wrote her coattails. Yeah.
Yeah, great. Well, yeah. Good,
And I've been riding them ever since, I'm telling you.
Good job in that. Good choice in a spouse. Look where it gets you. And so why did you end up on it a second season?
I think I probably gave them pretty good amount of ammo for good TV, call it. We were highly competitive, kind of win at all costs, tons of ego, just ultra, you know, go, and we were combative, and I was, you know, kind of, you know, off the rails at times. And so they were like, they would be great to bring back, right? And we won more legs than I think has ever been won on a season, but we didn't win the last leg. So we didn't win, so they were like, okay, when we bring this kind of all-stars together of people that have almost won but not won, that'd be a great, you know, invite back. And actually, it's funny, if you really want to know, we were doing one of our manifestation practices in Jackson Hole on the mountain, and we had just watched our first season of The Amazing Race for the first time since it had first aired. So this was 14 years later. Our kids had never seen this season, and we're like, okay, maybe it's been long enough. We can like show them this, and I can be like, you came from that person, so you may want to pay attention. Anyway, so we ended up having a blast watching our season of the race. We ended up, as we went to spring break and went to Jackson Hole, we watched the finale in Jackson Hole. The next day on the mountain, we were just kind of dreaming into, we were like, wouldn't it be kind of cool to go back and do the race again, but kind of from a different place, different perspective, a different awareness, and you know, using different practices, could we kind of combine being all in for the win and being highly competitive, but not being attached to it and not having it define who we are, right? And so we just dreamt into this. We were visualizing it, what it would be like, and I sent one message to someone who did casting back when we did it the first time, 14 years earlier, had never talked to her since. Sent her a text message, I didn't even know if it was still her number. Anyway, she writes back 3 weeks later, she's like, actually, we're putting together an all-star season, and if you guys want to be on it, you're in. We leave in a month.
Wow.
And so we're like, whoa.
Meant to be.
There we go. Yeah.
Yeah. And then, so how did that affect your business life? If it did.
Yeah, you know, we were gone for 4 weeks. So it was like an extended vacation. I had just started Gwyn Partners. And so we were just getting Gwyn Partners off the ground, which is an engineering services firm here in Austin. But I had 3 really strong partners. And they were like, yeah, great, go do it. We got this. Because you're gone for 4 weeks, and we couldn't talk to our kids. We couldn't text with our kids. We couldn't, you know, you had like a PA that would let you know every 3 or 4 days everything's good at home, but no email, no communication with the outside world. So, you know, it's a little bit nerve-wracking, like, you know, okay, we started the business like a year earlier and then leave for 4 weeks, but it was great, it was fine.
And well, I meant more like as a positive impact, like after. Have you used it in a way to like promote it, like is it as a personal brand? Does anything else? Has it affected your?
I think you have to like really do a lot of like social media and posting and engaging and a bunch of stuff that I just don't have time for or the desire to do. So we really just did it for the experience and getting to have fun with it. I mean, you know, maybe there's been a couple of things that have happened from it, but we're not trying to like launch a, you know, reality TV personality influencer career. So I don't know, it was really just amazing doing it. We won $1 million, so that was cool. We were able to, actually that $1 million, we parlayed that into another business
by
we
the way,
started.
there was $1 million.
Yeah, so that was cool. We parlayed that into buying Twin Flame, our first 62-foot catamaran, which, by the way, our captain and crew and / best friends are here visiting from the Caribbean because our boat is in the off season right now. And so we've been doing that for the last 4 years with Twin Flame. That was kind of gave us some seed capital to do that, and it also gave me the seed capital to get Gel Blaster going. So, yeah.
So let's talk about Gel Blaster.
Let's do it.
How did this start? Like, I mean, you had a very successful business helping lots of other companies to build their drone companies, building products. You were coming up with products. You were like doing like physical things. Like it's kind of a drone toy robot thing, but like
Well,
not,
just wait till you see what's coming.
Yeah,
It's a
right.
very drone robot.
but not, you know, but not really, right? Like, how do you end up building a toy company?
Scale of 1 to 5, how verbose do you want this answer?
I mean, 4.
Okay, all right, here we go. It sounds like I got a license to talk. Okay, so basically a couple ways, right? One was that our kids were playing a bunch of video games. And what I noticed is that they were 8 and 12 at the time, and they were playing a lot of Fortnite on their iPads. And I noticed kind of this like internal judge voice in my head that was like, when I was your age, we ride around the neighborhood on our bikes and get in trouble, and we'd be out all day, and you know, y'all just want to sit on the couch and play your iPads, you know. And I'm like, okay, wait, take notice of that. Like, what is that telling me, right? And so I was like, let me just try to understand this. Let me try to understand, like, what is this draw, right? So I'm like, okay, so I'm watching them play. I'm like, all right, I'm gonna play Fortnite with them. I'm gonna get into it. It turns out I'm a total noob, and they would just literally kill me over and over and over. No mercy. They wouldn't even let me hang out for like a minute in the little arena before they would just kill me again and again, laughing at me. So we'll come back around to what they brought on with that. But I'm playing, and I realize, wow, the reason that they're choosing to play these video games ultimately is because the brightest minds in our world and the best investment dollars in our world are all going toward making these digital experiences incredibly engaging and compelling and addictive and profitable, right? And what I realized is like, whoa, when I was a kid, I had to think to myself and go, okay, internal judge voice, when I was a kid, was I playing outside because it was like the healthy thing to do? No, it was the most selfish, fun thing to do as a little kid, because inside meant reruns of The Price is Right, and MacGyver didn't come on till 7 o'clock. So I'm out, right? So I realized that our screen-based options have gotten at least 3 orders of magnitude better in the last 30 years, probably like 10 orders of magnitude better. And then if you think about our outdoor options for our kids to run around and play, they're like not that different. Ride a bike, ride a skateboard, play basketball, play football with your friends. I mean, we got spike ball now, which is cool. That wasn't out, you know. You got can jam is kind of cool. Cornhole, maybe that's new. Pickleball's up and coming. But I mean, this is not like a massive change the way we've seen with screen-based activities. So then as I kind of played these traps in my head, I realized like, wow, as parents, like we're really kind of up against an unfair fight here. My parents weren't up against this. I chose to go outside and play and engage with other human beings in the real world face to face because I wanted to meet friends and play outside. Like, our kids don't have to do that. And turns out the thing that hits their dopamine receptors the most is playing on these devices. And so someone is going to have to do something about that. We can't just all sit around as parents and complain. So I started running the traps of like, what would it take to kind of recreate this experience in a physical manner? What I realized was that when I was playing video games in college, I'm playing SSX or Gran Turismo or whatever, I was kind of wanting to recreate something that I would rather be doing in the real world. I'd rather be snowboarding, but if I'm not snowboarding, I'll play SSX. I'd rather be racing a go-kart around a track, but if I'm not, I'll play Gran Turismo. And so I was like, I wonder if that theory is true with my kids. So I was like, what's the closest approximation to Fortnite would be what? What do you guys think would be like the kind of the closest real world thing to Fortnite? Nerf gun? Who said that? Paintball. I was like, I'm pretty sure if you want a real world version of this, where you can't just make fun of me and call me a noob the whole time, we're going to play paintball. You're going to get to run around. It's going to hurt when you get hit. There's real consequence. Like, how are they going to respond to this? I take my 12-year-old. He's a bigger 12-year-old, so, probably a little young. Loved it. Got hooked. We started playing paintball like twice a month, right? But every time we play paintball, it's like $400. The paint is so expensive. Compressed air, expensive paintball markers. You're driving an hour away. You're destroying the interior of your car every time you drive home. I'm like, okay, there's another thing that will be part of our business course down the road, which I coined is called the BSTT. You always have to know what your future customer's BSTT is. Does anyone know what the BSTT is? You haven't taught that yet? It's called the bullshit tolerance threshold, okay? And it's a very important thing to know how high.
Technical term.
What's that? It's a technical term. That's right. How high is your future customer's tolerance for dealing with kind of friction in that user experience, right? So paintball is this big market that actually requires a very high tolerance of dealing with BS, right? Cost, distance traveled, dirty, it's painful. And so I was like, we were playing a lot. My younger son started playing with us. He came one time to play. He got hit by a couple paintballs. One of them drew blood on his stomach. He was like, y'all can have paintball. That's too much. And so I was like, okay, cool. Well, we'll just go home and we'll play the closest thing to paintball that is good for this age group. We had like 40 Nerf blasters at home. We bought all these Nerf blasters over the years. We had a big Nerf battle. Turns out it was super boring. You're reloading ammo most of the time. So I was like, that experience is kind of broken. That's great for like a 5, 6, 7-year-old kid. But by the time our kid was 8, he's over Nerf. But yet he's nowhere near ready for paintball. We're starting to see a hole in the market, right? I'm like, so I'm just searching, like, what comes after Nerf? Like, what? I want to order it for my house. I want it delivered tomorrow so I can run around and battle with my kids in the yard and call them noobs, right? So there wasn't anything. And that's where I just realized, like, oh my God, am I literally looking at a $1 billion market every year of selling foam dart blasters, a $1 billion paintball market, a $1 billion airsoft market, and there's literally kids age out of foam darts at 8 and they can't really play paintball or airsoft until like 14, which is also like pretty niche in and of themselves. And so that was the first opportunity where
More people use Nerf than paintball.
a lot more people use Nerf than paintball, but paintball and airsoft are significantly more expensive, so they end up being kind of similar sized markets. But yes, very few people actually go into paintball and airsoft. Maybe 1 in 20 that played Nerf, right? So that was kind of the first concept of, wow, I'm not a toy guy, but I'm a dad, and I'm looking for a thing, and it doesn't exist, and we could just make this, and, maybe we'll talk later about, like, the high-tech aspect of this, but as I let my mind kind of pretend like there was limitless possibility, I asked myself, what would it take to, like, really make that experience, but in the yard, where you're running around? Because the problem I had with video games was like, I know what I want my guy to do. I want to go hide behind that bush, and then I want to pop out, and I want to shoot you in the head. But like, I couldn't get my fingers to make my guy do it, right? And you have to put so much time into becoming one with the controller. And I don't have the time to be able to put in that kind of reps to like make my guy do exactly what I want him to do very quickly in real time. And so then my kids are just laughing at me. So I'm like, if we could create this experience where you are the avatar running around in physical space, and instead of using the right stick to control forward, back, left, right, you just use your legs. And instead of using the left stick to control looking around, you just use your neck muscles. And you just use your trigger, and you actually shoot a physical projectile, because in my opinion, if you're not shooting a physical projectile, and if it doesn't hurt at least a little bit, it's kind of boring, right? And so could we create that, but add all of the digital elements of a video game? And we all know, at the time, we knew, oh my God, I should have brought my patents. They literally arrived at the office today. I could have showed them right here, it was really cool. Okay, so we all knew at the time, this is 3 years ago, that augmented reality is going to be a thing. It's going to get big. So as a technologist,
let's not go there yet. Let's just stay at the toy for a minute. Like, let's.
You're just going to have to rein me in.
The rabbit hole goes pretty deep, but right now let's just talk about it as a toy. So like it's a replacement for a Nerf gun. You know, like Nerf gun, super successful.
There's a clear market for
this. This is just a better Nerf gun, more useful, more applicable,
more accessible, lower BS required.
You have more resources available to you than most people to just like go build something. But like you were like, so let's just go build it. Like, how do you go build it? Like, what is that? How do you go build a gun?
So
like a Nerf gun?
I mean, for me, we had an engineering firm, so we just made it really quickly. I mean, and actually, we actually kept it very simple because we didn't have a ton of money and we didn't have an investment. I was funding the entire thing myself. I didn't want to throw like hundreds of thousands of dollars at this because maybe no one cares about this thing. So what we give our advice to our entrepreneurs and businesses that we're helping at Gwyn Partners is like, you are trying to spend as little money and time as humanly possible to get to product market fit. Like, test your product market fit, it's all that matters. If you have product market fit and a high net promoter score and good gross margins, then proceed, right? Otherwise, just don't.
Then proceed to invest more money, spend more money,
just
market
throw it away, right? And so we were looking for the shortest, easiest, most efficient way to do that. And so we 3D printed, we drew it out, made some kind of designs. It looks very, very close to that. But the original ones that we sold on Kickstarter that were 3D printed were actually a little bit more basic looking. We brought out all the Nerf blasters, paintball, airsoft, recoil, AR games. We're just looking at them all like, how do we make a really good, easy user experience for kids and their parents to get outside in the yard and just shoot each other and cause laughter and exercise and running around. And so we kind of tuned how fast should it shoot. We don't want to be able to cause any eye damage even if I shot you right in the eyeball from here. But we do want it to like hurt a little bit, you know, so we kind of tune the velocity. We put it on Kickstarter. You know, we know how to do marketing, so you don't just like put something on Kickstarter and cross your fingers. You have to do like a month or 6 weeks of kind of pre-marketing campaigns so you can pop off on the day one of Kickstarter and get picked up by the algorithms. And there's a bit of a, you know, but that just comes from experience. I think we got onto Kickstarter with a product and a video that we shot in our yard with working products for under $100,000. And then we did like 350 grand, 380 grand, something like that on Kickstarter, which really you can just buy as much revenue you want at that point, but it's not really very profitable revenue. We knew enough to say, okay, we're gonna make our first 16,000 of these things and actually sell them at a better profit than like the huge discount Kickstarter deal. So yeah, that's kind of how we like got it off the ground. And we didn't hire our first employee until we ordered 16,000 units.
So and you kind of said two things that went hand in hand. You were like, on the one hand, like there's no you know, don't just think you can just launch a Kickstarter. Like, you got to like go work it. You got to market it. You got to make it happen. And then you're like, on the other hand, you were like, yeah, but we know how to do that. Like, you know, we've done that, but you know, we just know that from experience. You know, like it's not that easy. Like, how did you get that experience? Why did you have experience launching Kickstarters? How did you know how to market stuff?
I think for me personally, because I've always done sales my whole life growing up, right? I went to military school when I was 11 years old in Kansas, and we got $5 a week in allowance, and I wanted to buy more candy than that afforded me because I ate a lot of candy. And so I was like, I need more money than this. And so what I could do is I could go to Walmart down the street and I could buy a 24 pack of Dr. Pepper for about $7.50 and a 24 pack of microwave popcorn for like $4.70, like $11 or $12 for 48. And I sold them for $1 a piece, so people knew they could come to my dorm room anytime and pay $2 for a popcorn and a Dr. Pepper. And I could turn that $11 or $12 into 48, and I just always had Dr. Pepper and popcorn available. Then I would have my parents send me care packages, and on Sunday mornings when people got to sleep in and they were super hungry come 9 or 10 o'clock, because we always ate every morning at 7 at military school, then I would price gouge people and be like, oh, you want a can of Pringles? It's gonna be $7, you know, or whatever. And so I was just like, I started at 11 just selling, right? And then I went in, I sold knives in high school, I sold telecommunications, I sold books door to door to pay my way through college.
And so I'm with you, but specifically Kickstarter, because it is its own thing. Like,
I had never done Kickstarter.
You'd never done a Kickstarter before. You
I'd never done
Kickstarter. None of your Gwyn partners.
We'd never done a Kickstarter campaign. So I kind of wanted to try out Kickstarter. It was kind of a way to be like, well, we're going to launch this thing. Like, we kind of should know how this platform works, so let's go ahead and figure it out. So we talked to some people that do Kickstarter, had some meetings with them, understood that turns out Kickstarter is basically just a giant racket. You know, it's like very much pay to play. Occasionally there's a product that really pops off and goes wild, which I think sometimes gets companies into more trouble than they even realize, because now they're trying to scale faster than they can. But we met with some people, we learned how it works, and we learned, you know, the process of like, you really want 10,000 people who have signed up to be notified when you go live that you can hit on day one. It costs us about $1 a lead to do, you know, ads on social media that drop people onto a landing page that said, this cool new blaster product is coming out. It shoots, you know, environmentally friendly water-based ammo. You don't have to clean it up. It's battery powered. It's full auto. It's super fun. The basic value prop of what we're launching. If you want to be notified when we go live on Kickstarter to get the best deal possible, put your email here, put your cell phone number here. We use Klaviyo for SMS capture and email capture. We basically run those ads, and we were trying to get our cost per, you know, hot lead down below $1. We ended up getting it to about 72 cents across. So we spent 10 grand on the campaign. I think we had 12,500, you know, people on our list, something like that. And so that's kind of like the basic formula, so that when you launch, you're hitting your list 4 days before you launch, 2 days before you launch, day before you launch, morning you launch. You know, text crushes email by like an order of magnitude, right? We didn't add text till like the last 2 weeks of our campaign. I really wish we would have been doing text the whole time. And you want to hit, we did 100,000 in sales our first day. And because we did that 6 weeks of work leading up to it, when you launch and then you have, I think we had 2,000 or 3,000 of those people convert on the first day. We did 100,000 in sales on the first day, which triggered the Kickstarter algorithms. Then you become like a product we love, an editor's choice product. Then you start getting some free traction and promotion from Kickstarter. So, you know, that's really, then you can pay these campaigns, you can pay these agencies who specialize in preying on young entrepreneurs like myself, to, you know, they've done so many Kickstarter campaigns. They've built these lists of millions of people who have supported their previous campaigns, that they hoard that data and basically, hey, we'll market your product, but we want like 25% of the revenue. I mean, it's like usury rates, right?
So did you use them, anything like that?
A little bit, but I was just like, you know, there's when you hit that algorithm and you're like a product we like, then everyone comes at you, right? Here's what we can offer. We're going to hit our list of 2 million people. This is what we want to return. And they all want like 20 to 30% of the revenue. So we're just like, no thanks. Like, we know this product is going to work. We're hundreds of thousands in. Like, we know we're going to make it. People seem to be really excited about it. And so we could have just bought a whole bunch of non-profitable revenue to make our Kickstarter numbers look better. But like, why? we had the product market fit that we needed. We checked the box, like, let's move on to the next step.
So, what about like you have running multiple businesses? You know, you had Gwyn Partners, which is effectively this. You know, think of like a software development shop that builds apps or websites, except they build drones and robots. I don't know if that feels good to you, but you know, like, so they're like, you know, if you want to build something, you can go to them with an idea. Like, you could come with them with an idea for the Gel Blaster, and they can concept it and draw it up and help build, you know, help produce it and get you a prototype. And that, you know, you have that business, and then this side project that you started starts blowing up and taking off and taking up more and more of your time. Like, how do you balance that? How do you think about that?
You know, it's a really good question. So I think that it also just comes from years of working, like, treat people really well that you work with, and they always want to work with you going forward, whether they're your business partner or an employee or whatever. And so, you know, so many of the employees at Gwyn Partners and Gel Blaster were employees of DJI, 3DR, Hanger, Build Design Print, my old companies, right? And so over the years, we've been building up this kind of network of people that we've worked with, and I had really good partners at Gwyn Partners. So as it started taking off, I went from spending 10% of my time on Gel Blaster to 20% to 30%. But I think one of the biggest lessons to learn is, like, if so many businesses I did before the last 7 or 8 years, it was kind of like, this is the one thing I'm doing, and if this doesn't work, I am screwed. I'm not gonna be able to pay my bills. I gotta make this thing work. Right? That is not the mind space you want to be in. I spent 20 years in that mind space.
What do you mean? What
you start making bad decisions.
I know what you mean, but like, what is that mind space? I mean, isn't that every entrepreneur that's getting started that has nothing?
Maybe it is, but the faster you can transcend that concept of the success of this business directly ties to my worthiness as a human being on this planet and amongst my friend group. Like, if those two things are tied together, I remember feeling at 3DR when we were taking on DJI with a new drone product, which is a monumental task. We're taking on a $5 billion company as a new startup in the Bay Area. It's our very first drone that we created, was the Solo drone in partnership with GoPro. And here we're competing against DJI launching the Phantom 3, which was like their 15th drone. And I'm like, I am on a mission to, like, prove myself, right? And, like, you know, win and beat DJI because, you know, they did X, Y, and Z, whatever. And there was just too much ego wrapped up in that, and too much, like, identification with, if that thing is not successful, it means that I'm not this, like, really great, cool entrepreneur guy that's super smart and knows how to do a business. And so, what happens if that fails? Then, you know, how am I gonna, like, show my face to all my cool entrepreneur friends like Josh in town, right? And so, you know, that causes you to make questionable decisions. It causes you to, like, not look at things you don't want to look at. Our financial model was not right. Like, that wasn't my part of the business, but, like, we weren't making profit. We grew to 100 million in revenue in 18 months. And every drone we sold, we lost money. So actually, the faster we grew, the worse it was for the company, right? And instead of just slowing it down and, like, not trying to hit Best Buy and all the big retailers right off the bat, sell D2C for a while only. You know, I could have made a lot of better decisions as the chief revenue officer of that company. And so with Gel Blaster and with Gwyn Partners and, you know, post being able to look inward and like grow up as a human being, I realize now that, like, businesses are just like playing a game of Catan, right? It's just a board game. It's just playing a game of chess. You're making some assumptions. Maybe some people also want to get outside with their kids and play in the yard like I do. And if I make this thing and it's, you know, not too expensive, they might enjoy playing with it. And you're just kind of like running a series of experiments. And then if if everything checks out, you go to the next phase and you run some more experiments. And then if those all check out, you go to the next phase. And I believe that that has actually allowed us to scale so much faster because we are letting the business and the market pull from us, right? And there have been things with Gel Blaster that have caused us to kind of, by necessity, accelerate our scaling, namely Hasbro. We had the largest toy company in the world essentially come down here, do a deal with us. You know, I think we were in this conference room or on the 16th floor or down here, something like that. And they flew their private jet down with all their executives. Right when we had started, they bought one of our Kickstarter products. This is obviously the people that make Nerf. And they're like, hey, we want to license it and we want to take over and make this thing for you and sell it and ship it, and you won't have to do any of the hard work. You and your team of engineers can just keep coming up with cool ideas. It's going to be amazing. And the numbers were so good, we couldn't say no. It was like too good to be, it was like, okay, well, if they're going to agree to all this, like, we should do this deal. Well, turns out I don't know that they were ever going to actually give us those numbers, because 6 weeks into diligence and giving them all of our materials and sharing everything, they're like, okay, cool, we want to do this deal, we're ready to move forward, but we're just going to adjust it a little bit, essentially giving it like a 50% haircut. And so in that moment, I can either act from a place of fear. If I know that the success of Gel Blaster is tied to my identity as a person, I might say, okay, fine, because it's still a good outcome, it's still a win, whatever, I'll still partner with you guys. Or if it's just an experiment, it's just a game, it's like, no, there's no reason for you to cut this deal in half just because Walmart's estimates were 4 times what you thought they were going to be from a demand perspective. That can't be a reason to give us less of a license fee. And so we had to have the courage to say, thanks, but no thanks. We're going to go for it on our own. But in doing that, we were a little bit forced, like, okay, if we're going to do this, we're going to have to scale very quickly because we are going to be up against the largest toy companies in the world trying to come into this new category that we've identified.
So when you want to scale really quickly, how do you build a team around you of people to go do that? Like, the people that were at the Gel Blaster were not necessarily like people from the toy industry, right, or from the retail industry. They I don't know if had they sold things to Walmart, or Hasbro.
So I'll take it back to magic, which I'll always do. But I would say at least half of the work that I do is in my meditation practice, and then just visualizing what I want, how I want to feel in the future and how I want to feel like it's flowing, and then just kind of let my subconscious make a bunch of decisions for me throughout the day. But I think sometimes it goes beyond that, right? So I was having that exact problem. We're a bunch of robot people. We don't know toys. How do we solve this? And we're doing our manifestation practices around it and visualizing the perfect person to come in. Meanwhile, Steve Starobinski, toy industry person for 20 plus years, kid at heart, the perfect person, had just moved to Austin. We were probably sold in 5 retail doors. This is 2 years ago, right? We were probably sold in 5 locations. Today we're sold in 20,000 retail stores in 65 countries. So at that time we were sold in 5. And one of them was at Barton Creek Mall. He had moved to Austin, walked into the toy store that I happened to sell into myself a week earlier. He walks in, he's kind of like, oh, what's going on in the toy industry here in Austin, And they're like, you got to check out this thing. They don't even know he's like Steve, who's like future toy industry Hall of Famer guy. They're like, you got to check this thing out. And they give him one of our products. He starts shooting it in the store. He's like, what is this thing? How do I not know about this? I know everything there is to know about the toy industry. And they go, yeah, actually, they're an Austin company. He's like, no, that's not right. There's no toy companies in Austin. That's not correct. And they're like, no, the guy was in here last week, the owner, and they just brought him in here. They're definitely in Austin. So he reached out to us on Instagram. We got to meet. He comes over. He's been with us since then. And so he really was, his connections in retail, his connections in toy for the last 20 years were absolutely vital in helping us to, I had sold things to Walmart and Target and Best Buy and things like that, but never in toy, right? And so you can say we just got lucky with Steve, but there's maybe 14 other examples of that same type of thing happening.
I want to make sure that we leave time for the students to ask questions. But I want to lastly just focus on, you've commented a number of times tonight and made references to your meditation and practices and how important that is to you. So tell us a little bit more about what is that? What are you talking about? And how does that impact how you are as a leader and as an entrepreneur?
That's a big one. Okay, I'll try to, if I'm looking at this from kind of an engineering product development standpoint, I think that our brains do a lot of things that we think about in our prefrontal cortex and our conscious mind, but think about all of the things that our subconscious mind is doing all the time, right? We're cognitive misers. We're taking in, 400,000 bits of information per second, 4 million bits of information per second, and just like a camera takes in raw sensor data, then uses an image signal processor to throw away the vast majority of it and create a JPEG or an MP4, right? We know about how compression works. Our brains do the same thing. Yet our subconscious mind is taking in all that information and is making all these micro decisions continuously throughout the day that we're not even necessarily aware of in our conscious mind, right? So I would say the shortest answer for me is that I want to spend some amount of time each day in stillness when I'm not in my thinking mind. And oftentimes what I'll do is practices where I'm visualizing. I first get into a state of feeling really good. You ever notice how some days when you're feeling really good, everything feels possible, and it almost feels like, of course this is going to work out. Of course this business is going to work, right? And then some days when you're feeling a little tired and a little worn out, and maybe you got in a fight with your significant other or your roommate because they didn't pick up after themselves, and you're kind of frustrated, and you're like, man, this business is never going to work. No one's going to want to come work here. And I would just take notice of that. Wow, it's interesting how the same concepts from day to day could feel so different, right? And so I started just like, backwards engineering that and saying, okay, well, I don't want to think about those things when I'm in that state. So first and foremost, if I'm in that place, I am not trying to solve business problems. I am not trying to solve relationship problems. I am only going to figure out how to get myself to work my way back into a place of feeling good by doing the things that I know support me. Wake surfing, foiling, getting out on the water, paddleboarding, meditating, going on a hike, whatever, playing with my kids. And so, a lot of it is just training my subconscious mind to be making decisions that are in my higher self's best interest when I'm not paying attention. And if I am down and low and feeding a bunch of energy, a bunch of negative energy into some idea or some plan, now I've just trained my natural language processor subconscious mind to go and make a bunch of decisions in that direction for me, right? And so a lot of it, I think, is just using a practice to be able to deliberately vision what I want to, how I want to feel. When Gel Blaster happened, I remember the feeling of being at DJI when we launched the Phantom 1, and we just couldn't make enough of these things. People loved them. We created the consumer drone industry. It was so exciting. We're flying drones and teaching the most famous people on the planet how to fly drones, and 60 Minutes is coming down doing specials on us. We're just blowing up. And there's all kinds of problems you have to deal with. There's all kinds of challenges, but demand is not one of them. It's really cool if demand is not one of your problems, but you gotta.
Back when you'd launch the drone and it was hard sometimes to just get it to float and stay in spot, right? Whereas
That's
now
right.
It's
it was kind of the
right?
first drone that
Yeah.
would fly itself for you.
Yeah.
And if you turned off the remote, it would fly itself home and land itself. It was like a magic trick, right?
Yeah.
And so years after, and then I went and did 3DR, and while we scaled and won in a lot of ways, ultimately we failed. And all the learning lessons and all the ego deaths that came with that, I was actually meditating around and manifesting, I just want one more chance to feel that excitement of holding a tiger by the tail, just having something that's so exciting and people love so much that we're just trying to solve all the problems necessary to make more of these things and give them to more people. because that was such a fun time at DJI. And so I would live into what that felt like. And I would live into like, I'm gonna feel like that again in the future. And this time, I'm gonna have started it from scratch myself. And I'm gonna control my own destiny with it. But it's gonna be something that is so hot and people love so much that all the problems we're solving are just about getting more of this stuff out into the market. And so that way, when I came home and I saw, wait a second, there isn't a play thing for 8 to 14-year-old kids to do in the yard with their parents and their siblings that's a little bit more than Nerf, but a little bit less than paintball. I may have never identified that as a possible market opportunity or a business I wanted to create because it's not in drones, it's not in robotics, it has nothing to do with my experience or my past. But I had been manifesting that sense, and I was like, it hit me in that moment. I was like, oh, damn. There's probably a lot of parents that may want their kids to get outside and play more. And I know this would be a really fun experience for kids. So like, this could be that thing. And I remember telling Christy, like, this is gonna sound real weird, but I think we might make toy blasters and they might like really pop off. And so I think that's what allowed me to just be open to that possibility when it presented itself.
What did you think?
There was definitely a hole in the market, and what he's speaking to is the feeling sense. So he's recognizing the feeling sense that he had experience with in DJI, that it was familiar when he thought about the blasters, and so that's the breadcrumb that he begins to follow.
So
it's also the way and kind of brushed over that same feeling sense, when we were watching season 5 of The Amazing Race with our kids, that's really what led us. We were in that feeling sense when we thought, let's go back on. That was really fun. And we became cooperative components to going back on the race because we didn't know at that time, 14 years later, that they were already testing for an All-Stars. That's why when we sent the text, we received the information 3 weeks later.
It was like
that
meant to be.
we're doing it and you're on. So we become a cooperative component. So the meditation practice is really about allowing myself to become a cooperative component for my highest timeline. What do I want to create? What does that feel like? And then getting into that and then becoming the cooperative component to that.
So with Joe Blaster, when did it go from, wow, that's such a good idea, this could be the thing, like I can see this, like, but it's an idea, to like, holy shit, this thing's on. We're actually onto something. Like this is real. Like, what was that moment?
I think seeing Hasbro's response to it and seeing all those executives and how they were treating it, I was like, they've been doing this a long time. They've launched a lot of blasters. So that was a pretty interesting indication. And when we told Hasbro thanks but no thanks, we're gonna do this alone, we had done a grand total of like $2.5 million of revenue in our company's history. And Hasbro's thinking like, are these guys crazy? We are just gonna squash them and the whole world is gonna think we invented this category. Like they know for certain because that is what we do. That's what they did to Super Soaker and they got called out for it and had to pay an $80 million settlement. But that's what they do to a lot of young inventor toy companies. And I know that's what they thought they were gonna do to us. But that was a big indication. And then when we got on the phone with Walmart, and we're like, okay, we're gonna do all this, and we're gonna be with Hasbro, and they're gonna make it. We got this cool marketing agency, and it's gonna be this cool price. She's like, yeah, cool. My problem is, I don't think you're gonna be able to keep us in stock with this product. Why don't you tell me how you're gonna be able to keep me in stock? Because I think I'm gonna need like 2 million units next year, which constitutes like a $70+ million year of revenue when we had done like $2 million of revenue so far. And I was like, okay, that's an interesting challenge because that is a challenge. How do we figure out, how are we gonna finance that? Like, you know, I can't walk into a bank and be like, all right, cool. So I'm gonna need like 20 million bucks to build a bunch of these plastic blasters because the Walmart girl told me she's gonna buy a whole bunch of them. And guess what? Walmart is not gonna do any kind of guarantee POs. They're not gonna do any kind of, nothing. I'll write you an email saying how much I think that I am gonna buy from you next year. And you can use that and try to make it something. So we can't get any real banks to give us money on that. It's too risky. So we basically scaled the entire company on credit cards, or really like probably significantly higher interest rates than credit cards. And luckily, we have very, very strong gross margins, and we basically pissed away all those gross margins in usury, like, loan shark like money. But that's all you can get. Like when you're a young business, you're the like 19-year-old kid walking into the Porsche dealership to get like the 0% financing on a 911 Turbo, and they're like, what? Not in a million years. And then the next thing you know, you're buying like a 5-year-old 350Z at the used car dealership for a 27% interest. That was us as a business, right? Because that's who we were at that time. We have no history, no proof. So we could decide, well, we could sell a whole bunch of equity and give up a huge part of the business, or we can have enough confidence that we are going to be able to get to scale eventually, and we are going to get our interest rates down over time, and this isn't going to be some flash in the pan thing, because as the 4 people who raise their hands saying they know about who Gel Blaster is, what that is evidence of is that we still have very, very small market awareness, like 14% market awareness, and we're going to do $100 million in revenue this year. So all we have to do is get to 70% market awareness, 60% market awareness, and there's 4x revenue without any of the high-tech digital stuff we're doing. So to us, it was worth just letting it ride, And they're like, okay, well, you're going to have to sign a personal guarantee on all this. I'm like, all right, let's go. So you got to be willing to take risk. You got to be willing to not have it all matter so much, right? Because at the end of the day, if it all flops and fails, I can have confidence in my ability to create the life that I want for myself, because the life I want for myself isn't reliant on having a bunch of money. I could be living in Costa Rica, teaching surfing on the beach, if all goes to hell, and have a wonderful life down there. So I can't have that attachment and that fear driving my decision making. So.
Well, I can keep asking you questions, but let's open it up to some of the audience. And as you know, we usually go.
No questions? Seriously, no one has a question.
From the front to the back.
No one has a question.
We'll start with you over here. And Nick's going to bring you the mic.
So my question is to you, what is the biggest misconception dealing with like Chinese government? Because people think like, oh, DJI, Chinese. And what's the biggest misconception when dealing with that government?
It's a great question. I probably have that misconception, so I would be only feeding it by saying what it is. I have no idea. By definition, there's lots of misconceptions, and I'm sure I have lots of them, and I think I'm right, and turns out I'm wrong, right? So maybe I would say the biggest misconception.
What's your experience working with China?
My personal experience is in working with, working with companies that are born out of and come from just a very different culture, right? What I realized in my dealings with DJI, and it's the long story, whatever, they ultimately ended up buying me out of my share of DJI North America, whatever. But what I realized is that they are just playing by a slightly different set of rules. It would be like if we're playing Catan together and they're allowed to use any port because that's just part of how they play. But like how we play is you have to put a settlement on a port to be able to use that port. Or vice versa. We can use any port and they can't use a port. If you're sitting down and playing a game with another set of people, but you're not all playing by what's considered fair, not fair, correct, not correct, right? And so a lot of times people might take it really personally. Wait, you agreed to this thing and you signed this contract, but yet now you're doing this other thing, or you're doing X, Y, and Z. It's like, well, yeah, what do you mean? That's part of the game. Like there's nothing wrong with that. That's allowed. In Survivor, if I'm playing the reality show Survivor with you, and I tell you like, Josh, I got your back tonight. Don't you worry, I'm not voting you off. We're going to the end. We're going to the final 2, you and me, right? And then I go to the tribal council that night and I'm like, let's get this dude out, right? And we all vote, we blindside Josh. What is that seen as? A super good play a great blindside executed by these 4 individuals on this guy who thought he was going to the final 2. And it's like, no big deal. It's part of the game. That's part of Survivor. It's like the fun of it. If you take that personally, you shouldn't be on Survivor. So my biggest misconception was that everyone in all cultures and all parts of the world all play by the same business rules. That's just not the case. So maybe just understand what those differences might be and don't make a bunch of assumptions that everyone agrees with the way you want to do business. Those were the mistakes I made.
So with your company definitely blowing up, how have you seen, like you have competitors now with Nerf, with Gelfire, and how have you kind of seen that impact your company, and how have you responded to keep relevance?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I think anytime you can create a category, it's a great thing to do. Instead of like coming into a new category. So with DJI, we created the category of drones and consumer drones and prosumer drones and stuff like that. And then a whole bunch of other people came in, and all we had to do was try to stay ahead and keep making the best product, keep making the best user experience, keep building our brand equity and our brand identity, right? As you'll notice, when The Verge, when Gizmodo wrote about Hasbro's new Gelfire line, does it say Hasbro invents Gelfire category whatever in the heading of the article that Hasbro paid Verge to write for them? No, the heading says Hasbro makes their own Gel Blaster, because Gel Blaster is the name of the category. So first and foremost, create the category, right? Check. We have trademark on Gel Blaster. The name of the category is Gel Blaster. That can cause some issues down the road with branded search on Amazon, because basically branded search becomes like very expensive for us because we are also the name of the category. But in general, create the category and then just stay one step ahead. And that's what we're doing with the Nexus system and the whole digital ecosystem that we've been working on with all of our drone engineers for the last 3 years, which is like definitely going to be something that you will not see these other toy companies even like playing anywhere in that sphere. So constantly think, how can I make the experience better for my customers? And so one of the issues with our product is that it's kind of a pain to grow the ammo and let it hydrate for a couple hours, and then you're like dealing with, how do I strain out the excess water, and I've got this salad bowl and I'm spilling, and and I noticed right in the beginning, I was like, this is a problem. This is like kind of a hassle. So I was like, engineers, we're gonna make the best damn bucket this world has ever seen, specially designed for making ammo, storing ammo, straining the excess water, and speed loading your hopper. And we got some patents on that bucket, and it turns out that bucket is listed on Amazon in the blaster category, right? The number 1 SKU in the blaster category that includes all Nerf guns, all gel blasters, all splatter ball, that whole blaster category, the number 1 SKU at Christmas last year was our bucket. Because everyone who bought a gel blaster, everyone who bought a gel fire, everyone who bought a Zuru or a Primetime Toys or a Daisy, which is Splatterball, they're all buying our bucket because it greatly improved the user experience of this type of product. So we are constantly thinking, how can we make this better for our customers? I don't give a shit what those guys are doing. I want to know my customer, I want to know my kids, I want to know this play pattern, and I want to make it better. And we own 50% of the category, which is the fastest growing category in toys today. And so, you know, if we can maintain 40 to 50% market share of that category, we're made in the shade.
Nick, can you pick who gets the mic?
Yep, let's start right here. Got 2 mics now.
2, okay. Yeah, so I just wanted to ask, so as you scaled your product, how do you decide what features you'd need to compromise on and what you'd really, I guess, what would not change no matter what?
Oh my God, it's such a good question. And it harkens back to the very first thing I said when Josh first gave me a microphone today, which was, be your own customer. You will always get beat by the person who's building something for themselves because they know how to answer that question. All product development is, whether it's software or hardware, is a series of compromises. That's all you're going to be met with. The dreamboat scenario is that this thing exists. this new CRM that uses language processing and people can just ask it a question magically and it's going to tell me all about my customers. Like, that's the dreamboat scenario. And then you're met with, actually, we got some complexities. And you wanted it to work this way, and your engineers come back and they go, you can either have this and it costs this much, or you can have this and it costs this much. And you have to be able to make the decision for your future customer. Because maybe my future customer wants is like, oh, an extra $10 for X, Y, or Z feature? Absolutely no brainer. They definitely want that. Or, oh, $10 for that? Definitely do not need that. Absolutely not. And I can answer that question because I'm the customer. I'm the dad who wants this thing for me and my kids to play with. So the answer to that is like, be your own customer, understand the problem really, really well because it is your problem. Then you'll be able to answer those questions as they come along.
Wait, this is, hello.
Yeah, you just break it down.
That's right, I can hear you.
Okay, well, I know you mentioned meditation and how it's like really important and like making you more productive and everything. So I was just wondering if you could like elaborate a little bit, like on, like you seem very in touch with like your mind and like motivation and how it relates to the business. So I was just wondering if you could elaborate on like how much you meditate and like what mental steps you go through.
Yes, I'm like a super, super high energy ADHD kid, right? Like they didn't know what to do with me. I'm bouncing off the walls. I can't sit still to read a book. I can't relax, right? And so meditation became really important for me as a way to like have some balance, right? So I'm kind of like a very like habitual type person. So my Apple Watch does not hit me with notifications every time somebody's like updating their Instagram profile or whatever. My Apple Watch is here to help me track 6 daily habits that I want to do every single day, which include that are all have nothing to do with work. It's all physical and mental well-being. One of those daily habits is at least 20 minutes of meditation. And I've got to when I go to bed at night, I've got to click that, and I'm at 703 days without missing at least doing a 20-minute meditation. Before I implemented that, I could hardly get myself to meditate 2 days a week, right? Even though I knew how beneficial it was. The problem I would get into is I would meditate, I'd be meditating every day. By the way, the 6-phase meditation, you guys would love it, by Vishen Lakhiani, something like that. It's called the 6-phase meditation on YouTube, especially if you're engineers. I would do that meditation, and things would start working. Everything's like, man, everything's going great. Everyone's coming. Like, people are finding us. This is amazing. Now I'm like, I don't have time to meditate because I got all this great stuff going on. I'm working. I missed my meditation that day. Oh, no big deal. Things are amazing. Oh, I missed it the second day. Like, okay, great. I didn't get enough sleep that night because things are going so great, right? All of a sudden, 4 or 5 days go by, and I'm like, man, I'm kind of feeling tired. Guy cuts me off in traffic, and I can like hear the internal voice like wanting to like yell at him and chat. I'm like, whoa, I haven't been on that channel in a while. I used to do that all the time, but like, why that? Oh shit, yeah, I haven't meditated in like 5 days, right? And so I would get into this cycle, and so I realized just like the most important thing is to do my daily habits every day that lead to me feeling good in my body and in my mind and my spirit. And then let whatever other time I have in the day, I'm going to create from there.
Yeah, I think one of the things that Chris Himes said when he was here last week was when you're CEO of a big company, you're never done, right? You can't go to bed at night going like, okay, I got all the things done. I
got my to-do list done.
Everything's done. There's nothing else I need to go do. Like, think what the president's like or whatever. Like, there's like a million more things to go do, a million more problems you could go solve. And I'll just say personally, I'm 47, and it's really I would actually just say really just for me just really started to catch up to me recently, as in my middle life. My kids are teenagers, Capital Factory's growing, and we just went through COVID and everything else, just like all you did, and suddenly I'm thinking like I thought I was invincible. I thought I could work all the time. I thought I could and like actually no, like I'm not invincible. Like I need to make sure that I make time for these things or I'm not feeling good, and then I'm not able to bring my best self to the things we go do.
And then that just permeates through.
Yeah.
The more people you affect, that just ripples out.
But that's really, and it was something that I went a long time, 20 years, and thinking and I just thought oh, that's just me, I'm just invincible, I'm just.
Oh yeah, I was in the same program.
Yeah, I can just I'm just like that, I can just go do that. And then actually recently I was just realized that no, I'm human. I actually need to take care of myself as well.
I would say use this formula. What I was doing is I was making assumptions about what would bring me happiness and because ultimately if I could say, I'll give you the ability right now to feel great and to feel free for the rest of your life. You want to do it? Yes, sign me up for that program. Okay, it might not mean that it looks exactly the way you think it's going to look, but you are going to feel amazing. And you're going to feel healthy in your body, and you're going to feel happy, and you're going to feel like you're on purpose, and you're fulfilled. And are you okay with that outcome? I am okay with that outcome, whatever that looks like. Because ultimately what we want to do is we want to feel free. We want to feel good. We want to feel, and so if you just simply focus on what makes me actually feel good and what makes me not feel good, we might think that what's going to make me feel good is having a big exit as an entrepreneur and being able to buy my private jet and have my yacht and take all my friends down and play with all our toys. But maybe that's not actually the thing that makes me feel good, right? Maybe that just makes me work 100 hours a week because I'm trying to get to some place that may or may not ever come someday, right? What you realize if you actually just pay attention to what makes you feel good is that giving back to others, helping other people grow, feeling like you're in community with other open-hearted individuals who are on a similar path and trying to bring more good into the world actually is what
feeling
feels
like
good.
what you do matters.
Feeling like what you do matters, that maybe you're helping some kids spend a little bit less time on their screens and run around and meet the neighborhood kids that they may not have otherwise met, right? Those are how I start going into that. And what I was realizing is that what makes me feel good is playing. I was like, how can I play more? What if we just make a whole company about play? And then we have a reason to be in integrity with our mission by playing. So every day at Gel Blaster, a bell goes off, like when you're in elementary school, and that's recess at 12:30. And then that bell goes off again at 2 p.m. That's the end of recess. And you're not supposed to work during recess. You go play. Because we are a company that is embodying play. Because that actually makes us feel good. And so that is the stand that we're taking as a company, is to bring more play into the world. And so that's where me focusing on what actually makes me feel good and doing more of that, right? So just use that formula. And then use the formula of be really curious about stuff. If I can be really deeply curious about my experience as a human, and why I tick this way and why I act that way, and really look for cues and breadcrumbs for how people show up to you. I wonder, just really be curious and be willing to be super honest with yourself. That will lead to understanding, which equals compassion for self. Once you can find compassion and forgiveness and understanding and love for yourself, then you can provide that to others, not before you do it for yourself. You do those things, that is what took me 30 years to figure out, that simple formula.
Testing. All right, you just gotta speak up.
Hi. You've worked on, grown, and led a lot of hardware companies. Can you talk about some of the challenges that you encountered and what lessons you learned from them?
Maybe specific to hardware?
Turns out hardware's hard, costs a lot of money, takes 3 times longer than you thought, for 3 times more expensive than you thought it was going to be. Make damn sure you have margins. That's probably the big one, is people make some hardware product and they're like, we'll figure out margins later. We're going to make this, whether it's a drone, we're going to make it for $1,500 and we're going to sell them for $1,200, but eventually we're going to get our costs right and we're going to start making money. Well, it's that's a fake product. That's not a real thing. Just because people want to buy that thing for $1,200 Like they're buying something for $1,200 that costs you $1,500 to make. That's not real, right? Like that can't actually exist in the world, right? We're not living in the world of NFTs and hardware. We have to actually buy parts, put them together, put them in a package, and send them to customers. So like, if you don't have very clear line of sight on how that 1,400 becomes 300, which is like a pretty big drop in COGS and BOM, right? Then just don't do it. So with Kickstarter, we knew like our initial products that we sold on Kickstarter cost us $17. Today we're down to 10. That's a huge decrease, and we knew that we were gonna have that ability. But at $17, the very first product we ever sold was 59 bucks. And that was as thin as I was willing to ever go, because if we cannot sell this at a profit and have high net promoter score, which is literally the only metric that matters in your business, if I can sell at a good gross margin and have a high net promoter score, we are onto something. And so I would say, like, get your costs right, don't fool yourself, right? If you can't sell it at a profit, it's not real.
Now, on that note though,
Hardware is hardware is hard. That's a saying. That's like, I've been hearing that saying for a long time. Hardware is like not nearly as hard as it was 10 years ago. Would you agree with that?
In the sense that nothing is as hard as it was 10 years ago because of like all these technological advances, right? I mean, writing a paper is not as hard as it was 10 years ago.
But like, it's just hardware is it's more modular. It's more like software. It's more, there's more ways to get things, you can 3D print things better. You can get things sourced overseas better.
Prototyping.
Like, all of it is,
Yep.
I mean, that's my experience, is like we were really afraid to invest in hardware 10 years ago, and now we aggressively invest in those types of things.
I think that's true in a lot of ways. And you have people like the Walmarts and Targets of the world who have teams that are going out and looking for young new startups creating innovative stuff. Because people realize, like, we can't just make software. Who wants to live on the Axiom? Does anyone know what the Axiom is? We're selling tickets. You got your tickets yet? I'm not buying my tickets. I'm not buying my tickets to the Axiom, which is the big spaceship that takes everyone up into space so we can all float around on our floating chairs and drink our Bill Gulps with our VR glasses on. That's where we're going if all we work on is software. You gotta actually make some stuff too, so we can like move about in the physical world. So, yes, software is easy. It's easy to build, it's easy to scale, it's easy to prove out, it's easy to throw away if it doesn't work. But like, I don't know, people that I think are like really trying to make a difference aren't only doing software.
I saw a recent chart showing technological waves over time, from really going back to like industrialization and electricity and steam and things like that, and software being the last one, now starting to almost decline.
Wow.
In its kind of innovative opportunities, and robotics and hardware and space and things like that being kind of the next wave that's now being enabled. And I'd say we're seeing that at Capital Factory for sure.
Oh my God, it's music to my ears. I love that for
Yeah.
Nexus.
Yeah, so I noticed a lot of very successful people have like their vices, right? And they have like their ways of dealing with them. What are your vices and how do you deal with them?
That's a great question. So methamphetamine has been a big one for me. At first you lose your teeth, which is a bit of a bummer, right? No, I'm just joking. I probably shouldn't joke about that. It's probably highly inappropriate. No, my vice is sugar, candy. I mean, ever since I was a little kid in military school, I needed to start a business so I could buy more gumballs, right? Like legitimately, so I could buy more gumballs. So sugar has been a big one for me. I've actually, because I have a highly addictive personality, I've never drank. Because I'm just like, you know what, that's probably not a good idea for me. Like, I was already the kid at college, parties, was jumping off the 4-story apartment complex into the 4-foot deep pool, and like, people thought I was the drunkest, highest kid at the party. I had long hair. Everyone asked me to buy drugs from me. Like, I didn't even drink alcohol. I never experimented with any kind of alcohol or substance or anything until basically 30, when we started experimenting and working with plant medicines and psychedelics, which I highly recommend when the time is right, with the right intention. But I think knowing that I have a highly addictive personality was how I kind of managed my vices, by just like not letting myself, really like go in. Like, I've never done cocaine. I will never do it. I've never done alcohol. No reason for it. It's minor poison. You're not going to see me doing meth or heroin or any of those highly addictive things. I'm just never going to touch it because I've got a pretty addictive personality. So, that's, I guess, how I manage my vices.
I think we've mentioned this before, but yeah, my as I've told my kids, I have like 2 bright red lines that I have not crossed, and it's for me it was motorcycles and cocaine. And it was both of them. And I just was like, I'm sure I would love both of them.
I'm sure it would be amazing.
But both of them involved me ending up dead, splattered somewhere. Like, I do not
100%.
believe in myself and my ability to deal with it.
100%.
Because I have
Motorcycles were the same thing for me.
Obsessive,
That's right.
personality. Yeah, I think I love speed. I love motorcycles, and I will end up splattered somewhere. So I don't drive. So my e-bike is like the furthest I push it. But
same.
Yeah. And we got just time for a few more questions. This is great. Really appreciate these great questions.
Thank you for being here. So you and Christy got like second place on the first Amazing Race and first place on your second. So what was it about your teamwork that helped you get there?
Oh, wow. He's handing the mic over.
Oh.
She's our leader.
Give her your clip, too. You got it?
Okay.
What is it about? Or how do we do it? What is it about our teamwork? What do we figure out?
Yeah, I think when we first ran the race, we both wanted to be the leader, okay? We were like, I'm the boss, listen to me, both of us. So that really meant we were both in our masculine energy. All of us, whether you're male or female, have masculine, feminine energy. And we were both in that masculine energy. There was not any feminine energy being expressed on season 5. So yes, we were getting places faster, but ultimately we were not cooperative components. And in the end, we come up short. So when we go back on the race, 15 years later, we had done a lot of inner work on ourselves. We had already started experimenting with plant medicine, psychedelics, meditation, breath work. And what we had both learned was a lot of reverence for how powerful the feminine is. So when we went back on the race, it was very important for us to really harness our feminine energy, okay, the oracle, the intuition. You have 2 brains. Your original brain is your gut, and then you have this second brain as we evolve. And so we were much more in our original, like in our gut, in that feminine energy. And we also respected each other because what Colin and I, we've been in relationship for 23 years. And what we do beautifully, but we took us a long time to learn that, is when I step into my masculine, he goes into his feminine. When he steps into his masculine, I go into my feminine. And that's where the polarity, that's where the magic really is. So we were visualizing, we were meditating, sex magic practice together, as we were intending how that next leg of the race was going to go. And wouldn't you know, it would look almost to a T, exactly as we had visioned it. Because that's the kind of reverence we had for working with that more feminine energy. And that was really the biggest difference for season 31. And it was the difference between second place and first place.
That's great. Thank you for sharing that.
Very
we got
well said.
bonus points today. Time for 1 or 2 more questions.
So I got 2 questions.
You get one.
Well, they're related, so I'm going to do both of them.
We'll see about that. All right, let's start.
How did your product, how does Kickstarter make money off your product? And
Would you take a cut of your sales?
Just initially?
Okay.
You got to pay fees to get on the platform.
The
and
ones
they
you
gotta
sell
cut the
through
sales.
them.
Yep.
And if you knew everything that you do today, would you still launch a product from Kickstarter if you didn't have all this money and all that?
Maybe. Yeah. I mean, I would definitely think about it, and I might do that. I would have to like give it some more thought and see what other options are available to us to like give you a real answer. But it's not a definite no. It's not a definite yes. You know, much like Meta allows me to get just enough ROAS to keep giving them money, right? And I tell you what I'm gonna crack next is how to not spend marketing dollars on Meta or Snapchat or TikTok. I'm gonna find a way to make giving kids free blasters my best marketing channel I can possibly have. If I could figure that one out, I'm not only giving a bunch of kids blasters to get them having fun and playing in their neighborhoods, but I'm not playing into the algorithms of Mark Zuckerberg and the platform elites, right? Because when I'm buying ads on Meta, guess what I'm paying? Retail. When I give someone a $50 blaster, guess what I'm paying? $10. And if you have a high net promoter score, you should be able to turn that into a marketing channel. So much like that, Kickstarter is the same way, which is why you get a maybe, because it's like, yeah, I mean, it kind of works just enough to maybe do it again.
We need to get him a little meet up with Josh Clifford's. Little from Free Water. You guys need to mind meld on this.
Yeah.
One more question.
Here's a fun fact. If I give away 2 gel blasters and it sells 1, I beat my Facebook ROAS.
Hi, so I wanted to ask you, how did you have access to an engineering firm when you first made your first product? And what's your recommendation for like an average citizen who doesn't have an engineering background, doesn't have any amenities, and they want to try making a minimum viable product?
I had access to it because we built an engineering firm post DJI 3DR hangar. So I had built many high-tech digital and hardware software products. And we were like, hey, let's all come together and create a group of people where we can like build stuff for other young
It was
entrepreneurs.
like a group of people that build that like websites or apps, but they built robots and stuff instead.
Yeah, so we just had
like
the
you see that
experience,
today.
right? And so if you don't have that, what I would say to everyone who wants to start a business is learn how to sell. Learn how to sell something like your dinner relies on it, like you're paying your rent relies on it. And people think of like sales as, oh man, like I don't want to be some used car salesman guy. And by the way, like that's the shadow side of my kind of superpower of ability to sell is being that used car salesman. That's what I got to keep an eye on and keep in check, right? But my ability to sell has really helped me in so many ways. Like, say I have some idea for a product. I could go into an engineering firm and I could have that whole engineering firm being like, hell yeah, we want to help you build that thing. That sounds amazing. That's awesome. Because I'm going to just communicate to them why I believe that this value proposition existing in the world could be successful. And hey, if you guys help me build it, we can all do this together. And so the first thing I would say to anyone that wants to be an entrepreneur is learn what sales actually is, which is the ability to understand why something was created, software, service, hardware, anything. Why was this thing created? Who is it created for? What's the problem it's solving? Learn who the people are in the market that might care about that, your TAM, right? Your potential customers. Learn how to find out where those people are and where they hang out, and then get really good at articulating to those people, guess what? This thing exists now, and it solves these problems that I'm pretty sure you might have. You may be interested in this thing. That's all sales is communicating why something was created and why you might care about it. And then as an entrepreneur, all I'm doing is selling potential employees on why they should come give their life force energy to our company day in and day out and trust us to pay their bills and pay their paycheck, right? You gotta convince people, like that's a big thing you gotta convince people to do. They're like, wait, you got 4 employees. What are you talking about? I'm gonna come work for you, especially if you're trying to attract top talent that could go get a job at Facebook or Apple. You got to inspire them and make them feel like what you're doing matters. And I believe that you guys are going to be able to do it. So you got to be able to communicate and sell them on this concept of what you're building and why people are going to really care about their menu system of what they're going to eat at the cafeteria of the school, right? If you can explain that well enough and why that is a sure hit thing, then people are going to want to come work for you. You're going to have to sell your idea and your company to investors, to your customers. That's what marketing is just packaging up your sales pitch in an easily shareable, digestible format, right? So I would say if anyone ever has any concept, any idea of wanting to become an entrepreneur and scaling a company, you should go do sales for at least 1 to 2 years and be able to know that you have the ability to articulate a value proposition to someone who might care so that they buy the thing. And challenge yourself to never, ever once in those 2 years ask for the sale. You don't ever have to close anyone. If you do a good job of saying, guess what, this thing exists and it does these things which you might care about, they'll just say, great, I want to buy it, please. Okay, cool, here you go. There it is. You don't ever have to like sell or ask anyone to close them. And if you get good at that, you'll be good at communicating your value proposition of your business to future employees or investors or customers.
One of my longtime partners and co-founders at Capital Factory, Gordon Doherty, has a popular saying that sales is a transfer of enthusiasm from the salesperson to the buyer. And I think Colin clearly exemplifies that. You can see that without any extra additives or needed, he is full of enthusiasm, and it comes across, right? He exudes it. It transfers. Like, how does he get the engineers excited about what they're working on, right? He's able to transfer that enthusiasm, and that's a bunch of different things. You have to have the enthusiasm. Like, it takes a lot of energy. It takes a lot out of people. So you can be an introvert to do it, but it takes a lot out of you when you do it. And you have to have real passion for it, and you have to be able to speak that language. You have to be able to translate, right?
And all you have to do is find something that you're super into, that you think is really awesome. Like, I'm not saying you should go become a car salesman if you're not into cars, but if you love cars and you love customizing cars and sports cars, wherever, then maybe go sell cars, right? If you love yoga, go sell yoga for a yoga studio because it's something that you really believe in and you're into. If you love education, go sell educational programs for a nonprofit. All of those things are sales jobs, right? And so you can find something where you're like, that's a really cool product. That's a really cool product that I actually want, I care about, I think is a really cool thing that exists in the world, and I want to go help spread the word about that really cool thing. That is doing sales. You don't have to sell something that you don't believe in. And if you roll up to a company and you're like, oh my God, let me tell you how into yoga I am. They're going to be like, have that person selling our yoga, right? So they're going to want to have you sell their product if you really are passionate about what they're doing. You got to be passionate about something. And then find that thing that turns you on or lights you up and go sell it. And then decide what you want to do as a business later.
Well, with that, I want to be respectful of everybody's time. First of all, thank you, Colin and Christy and your team for joining us tonight. He has this beautiful boat out that they, I guess it's not quite the season to be out on, but they could be out on. He has family he could be at home with. He has this booming business that needs his attention, and yet he without hesitation, said, of course, I would love to come here tonight. So thank you for spending your time here with us tonight. We really appreciate it. It'll go on the podcast too. And hopefully you'll all get to try the Gel Blaster. We gave out some of them. One thing we didn't think through was the giving out of the rest of the Gel Blasters. So I was going to propose that as well. Yeah,
it was like whoever asks a question gets a Gel Blaster. We also just brought maybe like 12, no, we brought like 24. It looks
there might be some extras. So you said giving out a Gel Blaster can be
it's our best form of marketing.
Right? So what do they need to do to make that work for you? What's their job if they get a Gel Blaster?
Just
go shoot people?
Play with it.
Shoot people.
Yeah, just shoot your friends.
Yeah.
Make sure they have eye protection on, but I do recommend...
Don't shoot them in the eyes.
I do recommend lips,
earlobes, necks are kind of like the sweet spots, if you really want to get them. That's pretty much the only place I aim. But yeah, they're not going to do any permanent damage. It's a great way to get outside, run around, play. My guess is if you guys start running around, there are apparently dorm rooms and dormitories at colleges that have signs in the dormitories that say no gel blasters allowed. That's how you know you've made it.
When you're banned, that is ultimate
My
success.
marketing team knows that if we don't have no gel blasters allowed signs in these local high schools by the end of this year, we did not do our job.
All right.
So go use them.
Thank you, Colin. Let's give him a big round of applause. Thank you very much.
Not the one clap thing?
What?
Not the one clap thing?
You got the big round, yeah. Next week we've got
Thank you,
Jacqueline
guys.
Samira coming in. And Jacqueline, I think you're really going to enjoy. I hope you've found these to be some really great speakers. We're so fortunate about who we're able to get to come in. But Jacqueline, again, when I opened a co-working space here in 2012, was one of the first co-workers here working at a company here called Own Local. And she's worked at many startups since then. She's now got her own company called Howdy, which is, of course, a name that I love. What they do is outsourcing of software, particularly to Central America, but in a really scalable way. She went through Y Combinator. She was funded by, I believe, Excel, which is like one of the top VC firms.
Wow, that's amazing, yeah.
She's totally on an IPO type path is what they're kind of going for. So it's a really aggressive business, and she is an amazing entrepreneur. And so super excited to have her join us here next week, and we will see you then.
And I'd love to talk to her. Maybe be a customer.
There you go. Right. There's your last attendance.
Awesome.
slide.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, and pizza did arrive. There's pizza over there. So thanks.
Yes, if you ask a question, grab a gel blaster. If all the gel blasters disappear and you didn't get a gel blaster yet, you can have a gel blaster. Come by our office anytime, grab a free gel blaster. We're right on Lake Austin. Send us your address. We'll send you a gel blaster. Everyone gets free gel blasters. Gel blaster for you! You get a gel blaster. Oh yeah, that's a good, yeah. Okay, yeah, we were super tight with them. Super good. We loved it. They're big, they call them Vector fans. Oh, is it? It's on, okay, yeah. We had 30 Survivor members. It turns out we don't watch any Amazing Race. Our kids are like, Amazing Race sucks. Survivor's way better. Yeah, Amazing Race more.
Yeah, we would try to get .com eventually.
I was actually really AC on my never but this music journalism class wants me to cover like a live musician. And so it's like, but I don't know, I've never been. It's really nice weather, hopefully something outside.
Yeah, the weather is taking a turn for the better.
Yes, hopefully that's a permanent tense. Probably just a lot of
And now you got a reason to like go to your local, and then eventually that technology will trickle down so you can post your closet in your yard. Like you're actually building up your upgrading your amp, your blaster, upgrading your shield. There's two different kinds of tournaments.